Today we're talking about the most efficient way to make cakes in Palworld. Let's get to it. So there's a bit of a debate going on whether it is better to buy all the resources that you need for cake for your breeding program or grow it using the farms. So I decided to take on the challenge of trying to figure out which one of these was more efficient when it comes to time. And holy crap, was this a rabbit hole. Every time I thought I had all the variables accounted for, I found a new one and I had to start all over again. Now I do want to point out I only ran this test when it comes to the new coin press. So making your own currency. There are other ways to get money, but I'm not factoring in all that. I just want to know if it's better to use this new coin press to print your own money to buy the stuff to make cakes, or if it's better to farm it. Obviously, early game, it's going to be better to farm it because you're not going to have the coin press. You're not going to be able to make your own currency. But at level 48, you can. And at that point, it becomes more efficient to use gold to buy most of the resources that you need to make cake than it is to actually grow the stuff that you need to make cake. Now, it's not just as simple as putting down the gold farm and printing gold, because there are a few things you need to take into account. And I'm going to explain all that to you now. So when it comes to making cake, our weak spot here is the wheat. It takes 5 flour to make 1 cake. It takes 15 wheat to make 5 flour. We need more of this base resource than we need of any of the other resources in this recipe. So that means that all of our calculations have to be based off of how quickly we can get enough wheat to make a cake. This is because if it is not faster to grow the wheat than it is to buy the wheat, then nothing else matters. If it was, then I would have had to have worked my way through all of the other resources one by one. So I checked this a few different ways. First off, I wanted to see how long it would take from start to finish just to collect the wheat from one farm plot. From start to finish, not taking into account the time that it took for the units to come do the thing or any of that, I trimmed everything down just so I could see the harvest time, the grow time, the water time. You get the idea. It takes 2 minutes and 53 seconds. From that, with my current setup, I get 28 wheat, which is enough for 9 flour with a little bit left over, so not quite 2 cakes. But then that got me thinking that there's a lot more time that is involved here with everything going on in my base and the different pals taking breaks and everything else that they do. So for the next test, I just waited 30 minutes. I just stood in that spot. I harvested it, and right at the start of it, with a clear inventory, no wheat in there, I just stood in the spot for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, I took a look at how much wheat I had. For that test, at the end of 30 minutes, I ended up with 252 wheat. That means that every 30 minutes, this farm produces about 16 cakes. Now, obviously, you can have multiples of these set up, which I do, but you can also expand the coin farm the same way. You can also increase your yield by having more prunellas and ensuring that you have as high as possible harvester that you can have, because the higher the harvest level, the more resources you get as well. For this test, I was getting 28 a pop. And I'll cover that variable here in a minute and why it is still better to go the coin route. So now that I had all of the data that I needed for the farms, it was time to figure out the data for the money. First thing was figuring out how much money we needed for a single cake. Now we cannot buy the honey, so you would still need to farm the honey, but you could just have an entire ranch full of the bees, making more honey than you would ever know what to do with, because you won't need anything else in your ranch. So honey is kind of a moot point. But minus the honey, you need 2,650 gold per cake. On the coin press machine, 1 ingot will get you 100 gold. So because we only produce 100 gold per ingot, we can't get 650. We round up to 2,700 gold per cake. It takes 2 ore to make 1 ingot, which means we need 54 ore per cake. Now, if you have the mine version 2, you can put 3 pals on it. On the test that I did, I had 2 mining 3s and 1 mining 4. Doing this got my production time to just over 1 second per ore. So I'm sure if you had 3 level 4 miners on there, it would be under 1 second, but that doesn't matter because this got me the data that I needed. So this means it takes 54 seconds to produce enough ore to make enough coins to buy a single cake. But obviously, that's not our only time variable in there, because there is also the production time for the coins and the production time to smelt. Well, guess what? If you have the electric furnace and a Jormuntide ingot or any other tier 4, tier 3 smelter, it takes less than a second to smelt the ingot. So it's basically instant. So that means that we don't have to count the time for smelting. It's more or less instant. But we do need to take into account the time that it takes to actually craft the 2,700 coins that we're going to need in order to buy the stuff we need to make the cake, which is just over 6 seconds. So if we put all of those times together, it takes just over 1 minute to farm and craft all of the gold we need in order to buy a cake. This means that in 30 minutes, we can have all of the resources that we need to buy 30 cakes worth of other resources. Obviously, you still have to craft the cakes. And if you remember, from a single farm, we only produced enough in 30 minutes to make 16 cakes with the setup that I had. And I'm sure you're like, well, just make more farms. And that's true, you could, but you could also just make more mines. And that leads us into the conversation of the setup that you need. So obviously in my setup, as I stated, I had prunellas going and I had a high tier harvester as well. If you haven't seen my last video, prunella has a stacking effect that increases the yield you get from your gardens, and leveling up her star level increases that effect, and the effect also stacks multiplicatively. However, you have to take the time in order to breed or catch all of those different prunellas in order to increase her star level and maximize that effect, where if you do the coin route, you don't need anything special, you just need 3 tier 4 harvesters per each mine. That's it. Tier 4s and you're good to go. Theoretically, you could do 3 tier 3 harvesters, but it's going to be ever so slightly less efficient. However, it will still be more efficient than farming. Your best bet though is to just do 3 tier 4s, and it should be well under a second per each ore that you farm. You could also mix and match them like I did for my testing with 2 tier 3s and 1 tier 4, and it will be ever so slightly, I mean, I'm talking just milliseconds over a second that it takes for them to farm each ore. And this is all also balanced in POW count as well. So for my testing, I ran 2 prunellas and a single harvester, 3 total POWs for farming, and 3 total POWs on the mine. As for the kindling POW for smelting the ores into ingots, you're already going to have that kindling POW out in your base anyway in most situations. Now you could argue against having that out and having a dedicated farming base and replacing that one with another prunella, and that's true. It would be possible to get an obscene amount of resources per each garden plot if you had the right setup, with each prunella being maxed out in their star level, but that is going to take an absurd amount of time in order to get all of that set up when you could just set up some mines and buy cake stuff. Because as it stands right now, it's almost twice as efficient to buy the cakes than it is to grow the cakes. I'm not 100% sure it's worth the effort, but if you would like to see a video about setting that up to be more efficient and getting just absurd amounts of resources from your gardens, let me know and I'll see about making that happen. But for now, I've got to recommend that once you hit level 48 and you can make the coin press machine to just make the coin machine and print your own money, then use that to buy the stuff you need for cakes aside from the honey. But now you won't need to have the cows or anything else in your ranch, so you can just fill your ranch full of bees. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. Let me know if I missed anything down there in the comments section. And if you found this video helpful and informational, please consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell so you can be notified when I upload other videos. And if you're looking for some more of my content, you can find a link to another one of my videos on the screen right now. I want to give an absolute massive shout out and thank you to all of my channel supporters for helping to keep these videos sponsor free. You all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to become an official channel supporter, check out the links in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and share your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.